Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. It's excellent to have you here. And there are really two types of people that might find themselves on today's video. The first is if you're a continuous supporter of the VSO Gun Channel, thank you very much. The second type might be somebody who is out there actively searching or researching information on Ohio's constitutional carry provisions that received bicameral support some weeks ago and have finally been signed into law by our governor. If you are one of those people, congratulations. Thank you very much for being an informed citizen and doing your own homework and not just listening and regurgitating potential misinformation that you're being fed by some talking head somewhere. Which I guess technically is exactly what this is. But we're going to do it better. I recognize that there may be some complete novices here that have no idea and they're just now interested in this because they don't have to jump through the government hoops to be able to defend themselves. There's probably a whole bunch of experienced people here. And then there are also maybe some people that are somewhat opposed. I'm going to try to thread the needle between all of those parties to try to give some good information here. And I will have various things chaptered below. There are 33 pages here. And I obviously can't cover everything that is in this thing, but there are some key points that I think are important for everybody to focus in on when it comes to this particular piece of legislation. All that said, I am not an attorney and nothing in this video should be construed to be legal advice of any shape, manner, or form. So to start out with, I want to speak directly to people who have found themselves here somewhat opposed or perhaps on the fence about this issue. If there's one thing that I think that we can all agree on is over the course of the last couple years, the government has showed itself to be completely incapable of, well, I guess we could just break the sentence off right there. The USCCA has a great deal of educational resources geared towards both new and seasoned shooters alike. And as an added benefit, they offer self-defense liability insurance to their members. God forbid that you actually have to use your firearm in self-defense. But we have a saying that when you win your gunfight, that you have started two new ones. If you use your firearm in self-defense, there will be a criminal investigation, and there will likely be civil suits attached. Having an entity to step in and help you with those fights is absolutely critical. The financial burden alone can be absolutely crushing. But I have a link in the description box down below, USCCA Partners/VSO, where you can go find more information and see if this is something that you need. Spoiler alert, you do. I want to say thanks to the USCCA for not only offering this invaluable service, but also for making today's video possible, and it is an absolute privilege to work with them. Lawful carry for the purposes of self-defense is simply the government acknowledging that it is not the best at providing for your protection. And I understand that that concept may be scary to some folks, particularly folks that have never considered this type of situation before or have had any reason or life circumstances to consider these types of situations before. However, it is statistically probable that the government will be unavailable to assist you in an instance of need, at least in a timely manner. And this is especially true as demand on current law enforcement assets across the country continues to rise. So if we look at lawful carry for the purposes of self-defense, there are echelons, and it's an evolutionary process. And if we look at Ohio specifically, we start out with open carry, which has been a thing long before I was born. And what that means specifically is that a person may carry a firearm loaded for the purposes of self-defense on their person as long as it is openly displayed for the public to see. Well, 18 years ago in the state of Ohio, we passed regulations that allowed for concealed carry. And that was a recognition by the state that while it is the right of the citizen enshrined in our Constitution here in the state, it is a tactical error for them to openly display that firearm in many cases for a variety of reasons. And having it concealed alleviates a lot of problems. We started a permitting process so that those who were concerned about these types of issues had some recourse where they could go out and address those issues. The level above permitted concealed carry is permitless concealed carry. And in many instances, people will refer to this as constitutional carry. However, read every character of this piece of legislation that was recently signed into law, I don't believe that this bill goes far enough to be considered constitutional carry on its technical merits. However, this is as close as we're likely to get in the state of Ohio for some time. So for the purposes of today's video, we're going to continue to use that terminology. When we discuss constitutional carry, what that signifies from the perspective of the government is two things. Either the public concern has become great enough that they think that they can't handle the bandwidth that is continuing to be placed on them for the permitting process, or they have acknowledged that it is not just the people who are concerned about it anymore. It is now understood that it is an individual right to self-defense and that everybody should have access to it. Continuing with that evolutionary perspective, Ohio was the 23rd state in the union to enact some kind of constitutional carry. To my knowledge, there are at least 3 other states that are actively pursuing similar legislation of their own. And by actively pursuing, I mean it was a race to see who was going to get a governor's signature first. So I'm saying that in the next month, we're likely to see 50% or greater of locales in the United States have some kind of constitutional protections for their citizens' right to self-defense. That's more than a prevailing trend. And the other number that I would like you to know is that in the state of Ohio in the last year, concealed handgun license issuance has jumped 20%. In my county, it takes absolutely forever to obtain a concealed handgun license. This is a shall issue state, which means that basically, unless you have a criminal record, they have to give it to you, and it still takes forever. And this is for a couple reasons. First, you have to find a concealed carry course that's being offered. Almost always, you will have to go on a waiting list because that class that is happening local to you is probably full. Or you have to travel elsewhere in the state to find a course that has an opening. Good luck finding a course. That's going to take you some time. On top of that, once you receive your certificate from that course, you have to get an appointment with your local sheriff's department. In my county, we have some issues. We'll just say that it's backed up and that it can take a long time to get in and get your appointment. You know what? I'm going to go there. Not only are we backed up, but in my county, we have a political problem. If you're from my county, you know exactly what we're talking about. I'll let you do your shit posting down below. The last 2 recerts that I did for my concealed handgun license, I had to take advantage of the adjacent county rule. Having participated in multiple concealed handgun licensing courses at the instructor level, I can tell you that of the population of women that choose to attend a concealed handgun licensing course, a large proportion of them aren't just there attending because they're hanging out with their boyfriend. They're there because they've had some precipitating life event that has driven them into that course to obtain that licensure. It is, and I'm not going to mince my words here, it is not okay to hold her right to self-defense in limbo for months at a time because of some bureaucratic fuckery and red tape. So let's talk about the class itself. And I'm going to say this from the perspective of somebody who has had the privilege of attending thousands of hours of training because of my career path in the firearms industry. The Ohio Concealed Handgun Licensing Course, the one to obtain your permit, is an abject abortion. And opponents of permitless carry, or whatever it is you want to call it, will say something along the lines of, well, some training's better than no training. You've clearly never attended the course. So to give you an idea, in the state of Ohio, it's a mandated 8-hour course, 6 hours of which are spent in the classroom, and the other 2 hours are to be a live fire range session. That, my friends, is not a training course. That is a permit mill, and a permit mill exists to feed students over to law enforcement agencies so that they can tax your right to self-defense through the issuance of a permit and collecting the fees. Agencies that oppose permitless carry, look at the amount of money they make off of permits, and I think you'll find your answer. And that is the whole impetus behind the permitless carry movement, the constitutional carry movement, to get the governments away from taxing people's right to self-defense. When we look at what it would take to actually teach a real self-defense with firearms course, you're talking about, at a minimum, having done lots of training courses, you're looking at 5 days in a row. The first day, about 6 hours, the first half of the day, would be spent in the classroom discussing the actual information. And then the next 4.5 days would all be spent on intensive range time. From that, at a minimum, it would cost a tuition of about $1,000 on top of about anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 rounds of ammunition over the course of those 5 days, probably more like 2,000 rounds of ammunition. And that is on top of the course tuition costs. So that would be supplied by the actual student. That ain't going to happen. On to the paper. And this is SB 215. Look it up. You're going to need to read this entire document because this document and what's in it determines whether or not you're going to go to jail while carrying that firearm or not. I don't know about you, but that's really important information. So you need to read it word for word. But for the Cliff Notes, what I am going to do is attack this from a very simplistic position. And that is, if you've been through the course already and you know what you can and cannot do and what you should and should not do, then the only thing that is changing is that the duty to inform has been drawn back. So prior to this whole thing, there was a duty to inform, which means that you're having a law enforcement interaction, you have to tell the officer that you're carrying a handgun. If you don't, that's a crime. But this definitively removes it from the statute, and it shifts the burden from the carrier of the firearm to the law enforcement officer. If you lie to the law enforcement officer after he asks you if you are carrying a weapon, then that is a crime. And that is the major change. There's some other ones in there. It's actually halfway decently written as far as the various provisions for conduct and how to handle yourself. Perhaps this should be a course that's taught in high schools. Actually, good job. That said, the rest of this document is an absolute slog. I suggest printing this out, having a pen or a highlighter with you, and then on a device of some kind, have the Ohio Revised Code open and use the search function to be able to find the relevant sections that are being amended. You are better off attending a quality in quotation marks, concealed handgun licensing course and have them hold your hand through it and explain it to you. Covering the law is also no longer in the requirements. So you're going to have to call the individual schools and ask them if they cover the law. Which brings me to the state of the concealed handgun license in the state of Ohio. In my opinion, there are several other things that go along with the concealed handgun license that constitutional carry just simply does not cover. If you're carrying, you can carry inside the bounds of the state, you can cross the West Virginia border, and you can cross the Kentucky border. You cannot go to Michigan, and you cannot go to Pennsylvania. Currently, you cannot go to Indiana, although they are on that list of people that are currently working on it. The additional benefit to having a concealed handgun license for the state in which you reside is that on the 4473 form, which is the form that you fill out when you purchase a firearm, you can substitute a valid concealed handgun license for a NICS check. As a federal firearms licensee, I spoke to the ATF today, and the general consensus is that there's going to be no change to that whole situation. And as far as the Ohio concealed handgun license permit is concerned, it's still going to be valid for that purpose. As someone who is a huge proponent of training, not required training, but voluntary training and skills advancement, it is my hope that now that the licensing requirement has been removed for the general populace, that the instructors that conduct these courses will have a renewed focus on actual training courses. But we've already touched on this a little bit, and that's going to be very much up to the consumer and the market, because I'm going to tell you right now, you can't get it done in 8 hours. That's got to be done, and you can't get it done for $100.